My name is Joe Moysiuk, and I'm the Curator of Paleontology and Geology here at the Manitoba Museum. And today I'd like to tell you a little bit about some interesting new acquisitions that we made. So these were some pieces of amber which were brought to our attention by some colleagues in Petrified Forest National Park in the US, in Arizona. These were actually collected by a fossil collector a long time ago from the Cedar Lake area in Manitoba, and somehow they ended up down in Arizona. And so when our colleagues there noticed these specimens, they realized that they would be better off being returned back here to Manitoba. So we're very pleased to have been able to bring these back home. These pieces of amber are very interesting because they come from the Cretaceous period, so the age of dinosaurs. So we know that these bits of amber formed from tree resin in forests that dinosaurs would have lived in. Now, if you know a little bit about the history of Manitoba, you'd know that in the Cretaceous period, it was actually covered by a shallow ocean called the Western Interior Seaway. So how did these pieces of amber end up in Cedar Lake? Well, we think that the amber actually originated in forests that were growing around the Medicine Hat area in Alberta, and then they were ultimately picked up by rivers long after their fossilization, transported downstream, and they ended up in Cedar Lake where they washed up on the beaches there. The amber is very interesting because not only does it represent the remains of the forests that were alive during the Cretaceous period, but it can also contain fossils of insects and other small invertebrate creatures. And these can give us a lot of insight about what sorts of tiny organisms were living alongside the dinosaurs. There are also representatives of some very unusual creatures in the Cedar Lake amber, like, for example, one of the world's only fossil tardigrades, or water bears. Those are tiny microscopic organisms that are famous for their ability to survive almost any sort of environment, from the vacuum of space to high radiation. So there have been some pretty neat discoveries from the Cedar Lake amber. You can actually see one of them in our Earth History Gallery. It's a small wasp.